हेलो दोस्तों, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। आज हम हैं मिकासुकी इंडियन विलेज में, जो कि है मियामी फ्लोरिडा में। इस वीडियो में हम देखेंगे इस ट्राइब के लोग किस टाइप से एलिगेटर्स की हंटिंग किया करते थे। अगर आप इस ट्राइब के बारे में और जानना चाहते हैं, मैंने अपने अपकमिंग वीडियो में काफ़ी डिटेल में इस ट्राइब के बारे में बात की है। चलिए देखते हैं एलिगेटर हंटिंग।
Sticks are not used to beat or abuse any of the animals. They're used as guiding tools and as spacing tools. So when hunting for alligators out in the Everglades in the traditional ways, you weren't hunting them with guns or knives or anything of that sort. The only tools you had with you was yourself, a rope, and a stick. As well, when walking through the Everglades water, it was very important that you utilized your stick as a poking mechanism, because since the water out there is dark and it is murky, you always wanted to make sure that you weren't going to bump or step into anything dangerous like an air pocket, a snapping turtle, or an alligator. Now, as you see, Jake is in the water, and just in that one corner, there's about 4 different sized alligators. Now, as he picks out his alligator, you're gonna see that he's gonna be grabbing it by the tip of the tail, and he's gonna be walking backwards very slowly. Now, the reason why we grab them by their tails is because ideally that is the safest spot on the animal's body. But even then, so you need to be very careful, because alligators are capable of doing full circles, which means they can't touch the tip of their tail with the tip of their nose. That's why when you do walk backwards with your alligator, it's always important that you're, number one, walking backwards and you have your stick with you. You always want to make sure that you're able to see where the alligator's head is moving around and where it's navigating towards. I promise you from personal experiences, if you turn your back on an alligator while you're holding the tip of the tail, they got no problem jumping up and biting you. And I promise getting bit by an alligator is not a fun experience. So you always want to make sure that you never turn your back on the animal. Now, the number one and most important step you must take when it comes to hunting alligators in the traditional ways is you have to work them of their energy. Now, when you're working alligators of their energy, overall what you want to do is you want to motivate the alligator to use all the muscles within its body so that it can tire itself out. Now, traditionally, how tribal members would do this was by bringing the alligator up on land and physically motivating that alligator to form tight circles, walk around, lunge, and jaw pop. However, here in captivity, because our water is very clear and we can see through it, we have the option to work them of their energy in the water. And when doing this, we just motivate the alligators to swim around within the same spot, or if not, swim within the same enclosure. Now, you will know that your alligator is well worked of its energy when it starts to slow down on movement. That does not necessarily mean that your alligator is sick or that it is injured. It just simply means it has no energy. And these animals do operate like solar panels, which means they're able to recharge themselves to regain the energy back. Now, how they do so is by basking. Basking means the alligator will lay out under the sun. They will start collecting and absorbing all the heat and the warmth. And once they're charged up, they're good to go like if nothing happened. Now, I know it might sound a little bit inhumane of the fact that we do work the alligators of their energy. However, number one, this was part of the traditional hunting technique. And number two, this is very important that we do this with our alligators here in captivity. Now, these animals naturally in the wild will swim miles and miles throughout the day. However, here with us, I will tell you very honestly, they do tend to get very lazy. And so when we motivate the alligators to work their joints out and work their muscles out, it is a very necessary and healthy exercise for the animal. If we did not do this with our alligators in captivity, I assure you they would be overweight and most definitely obese, and that is inducing a lot of health issues and cutting their lifespan in half. So please have no fear, this is harmless to the alligator, and this is a very healthy and necessary exercise for the animal. Now, the alligator that Jake is going to be demonstrating with, his name is Bubba. Bubba is about 9.5 feet. He's weighing in at over 300 pounds. And just in biting force, this alligator is carrying about 1,200 pounds of pressure per square inch. Which means if this alligator ever got the chance to latch onto something or someone, number one and foremost, it would be almost impossible to pry that mouth open. And just because of how big and how powerful his biting force is, I assure you he's more than capable of going ahead and most definitely taking a little souvenir with him. Now, as you see, Jake is very up close and personal to the alligator's face. The reason why he could do this is because alligators, in front of their snout, they do have a blind spot. Now, in order for these animals to get a perfect viewing of the world, they actually need to walk in bilateral format. That means the alligator has to walk in zigzag motion. Now, what Jake just demonstrated to you all is called the jaw pop. That is how quick and how reactive their jaws operate. Now, with alligators, all around their face and inside of their mouth, they have isosensors. With these sensors is how the alligators are able to pick up vibration within the water and sensation overall when they're up on land. And so the trick to the alligator's mouth is, while it is open, as long as you don't touch or trigger any of those sensors, the mouth will remain open. However, the moment that you do touch or trigger any of those sensors, the alligator is going to completely shut its mouth with all of its pressure that it has. And as I said, this alligator is pushing 1,200 pounds of pressure per square inch. So you can only imagine how much power this animal is carrying just within its biting force. Now, when your alligator is well worked of its energy, this is the time frame that you do want to take advantage of, and this is where you would want to go ahead and do your official capturing. Now, there's many different type of ways that you can catch your alligator. And the more modern way, what people like to do is called the quick catch or the quick jump. When doing this, you are approaching the alligator directly from the tip of its tail, taking one big leap onto the alligator's back, and from that point, you have to either sit, squat, or stand over the alligator, but you do have to cover its eyes. Now, the traditional way of how tribal members would catch their alligators was by doing the frontal catch and taking advantage of their blind spot in front of that snout. When doing this, as you see, you're approaching the alligator directly in front of its face, using one hand to keep the mouth shut, the other hand to close its eyes, and it is a very quick 1-2 step over and on top. Now, from the point that you are on top of the alligator, this is where the hunter or the demonstrator will then go ahead and have the option to sit, squat, or stand over the alligator. Now, Jake is the type of demonstrator. He will never sit on top of the alligators. He will always either squat, stand over, or have one knee up and one knee down. Now, from the point that you are on top of the alligator, this is where you go ahead and this is where you have to tie the alligator's mouth. Now, traditionally, tribal members, they will go hunting with family members. However, sometimes they were put in situations where they did have to go hunting alone. And so in such a situation that you are alone and you don't have anybody around you to help you tie the alligator's mouth, the technique that you would use yourself to keep that mouth shut, it's called the bulldogging technique. And as you see, when doing this, you're only utilizing just your chest plate and your head to apply pressure, extending your arms outwards, and then pulling out a piece of rope to quickly tie the mouth. Now, from the point that the mouth is tied up, this is where you would then go ahead and tie the alligator's arms and the alligator's legs. Once the whole body is completely tied up, you have to pick up the alligator alive, you set it on the bottom of a canoe, you sit on top of them, and then when you get home, that is where you respectfully euthanize the alligator. Now, the reason why you're not to euthanize the alligators right then and there of catching is because since it gets that hot.
और आखिर में हमने एक छोटे एलिगेटर को हाथ में उठाया।